Late autumn, Lycaron to Vostrum. I am writing this from my room in Vostrum, several weeks later than I expected to, and with far fewer dinars in my pocket. Since the Biscan coast, I had been wary of places bandits might hide, especially groups of standing trees near the road. I became careless in the open country south of Lycaron. I was walking alone on scrubby plains, drifting in my own thoughts. I could see for miles in every direction and thought myself safe. Suddenly I was surrounded by a group of rough men who knocked me to the ground, knelt on my back, and trussed me up. They had been hidden on a shallow dip in the land which they had learned from experience was invisible to passing travellers. They dragged me back to their camp and left me for a while. Then eventually their leader, a savage-looking fellow named Radagos, came up to me to introduce himself. He was chatty, almost as though he was a sort of marriage matchmaker approaching an anxious client. He said it was time to discuss my ransom. "Think of this discussion," he said, "as if you were playing that game of dice they play in soldiers' camps, where you roll and roll and roll as high as you can without ever rolling over 21. Name a person who might pay your ransom and come up with a sum of dinars. If the number is too high, your ransomer will not be able to pay it, and you will die. If that number is too low, then as soon as you become a burden to us, you will die. But if you value your life cleverly, you will live." I told him that my aunt, Istiana, owed me 500 dinars, which was probably much more than my father could raise on short notice. Plus, my father would probably try to bargain with Radagos, which defeated the purpose of the bandits' dice game, and I think would have been dangerous. As for finding Istiana, I suggested he send word to Salion and Skiorin in Epicrotea, who seemed the most reliable of her agents. I asked how he would send such a message. He told me that there was a vast network of letters crossing Calradia from one hand to the other, and for every bird flying overhead, from western shore to northern wood to eastern lake, there was a letter passing underneath. If you knew what you were doing, you could send whatever you wanted, as long as it wasn't worth more than a poor man's reputation. Why, he could chop off my finger, wrap it in linen, look up a peddler who he trusted, and give him 10 dinars and the finger. Then the peddler on his journeys would find a charcoal burner he knew and give him 8 dinars and the finger, and the charcoal burner would pay a shepherd 6 dinars, and so on down the road until at last Istiana, wherever she was, would unwrap the linen and receive a bit of extra motivation to pay my ransom. As for sending and receiving money, he could do that too, with a little extra trouble. I thought of the bit of torn parchment from revolt in my pocket. I asked Radagos how I could be sure that he would release me if Istiana paid. He told me there were 2 kinds of bandits, bloodthirsty ones and greedy ones. Bloodthirsty bandits die very quickly, if not at the hands of their victims' vengeful families, then at the hands of their own men. For it's a chancy thing to follow a man whose word cannot be trusted. I should be lucky in that I was in the hands of a greedy bandit, he said. Indeed, emperors and archons should welcome greedy bandits to their domain, for they keep away the bloodthirsty ones, and impart order to the business of extortion and abduction, the second oldest profession. He said that he suspected that honorable greedy bandits created the first kingdoms, having learned it is better to shear and milk sheep than to slaughter them. These conversations took place over a period of several days, and believe it or not, they were comforting to have, because there's a lot that rattles around your head when you are trussed up by a campfire at someone else's mercy. But then Radagos's group had to pack up and move to a new hiding place, because the local Archon Pharaon was not in fact grateful to have greedy bandits in his domain. We marched up into the hills until the dust of Pharaon's patrolling horsemen on the plain died down and hid in a canyon. And then it rained, and the canyon was flooded, and we were trapped for a few days. I suppose 500 dinars was a good price, because they gave me hot soup and blankets and kept me away from the other captives who coughed all night and shivered with fevers. A traveling musician brought Istiana's reply, and then one of Radagos's men went into town and came back with a purse. The 500 dinars were all there. They blindfolded me so I could not find my way back to their hideout, strapped me on a mule, and dumped me just out of sight of the gates of Vostrum. There is more to write, but I am very tired now.